Hello friends, once again, welcome back to your own channel. Today, we'll explore the story of the movie Roadhouse, released in March 2024. But before we delve into that, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and show your love. It motivates us a lot. Now, let's begin the story. In the beginning of the story, we see a fighter named David, who was challenging all the other fighters around by knocking them out one by one. He was boasting and inviting anyone brave enough to come and fight him. Many attempted to challenge David, but none succeeded. Then, a girl named Jessica comes searching for David and discovers that the fighter who was knocking everyone out was indeed David himself. David, having defeated all the fighters, was taunting everyone to come forward and break their bones if they dared. However, everyone was afraid of him, and no one dared to confront him anymore. Then, a man arrives and, accepting David's challenge, starts to prepare for the fight by loosening his shoelaces. Just by looking at this man, David decides to retreat like a coward, leaving the ring without fighting, and the man is declared the winner without a fight. This man's name is Dalton, a superstar wrestler from UFC, so such minor wrestling challenges were common for him. Jessica, who had been searching for David, witnesses this. She had been looking for a fighter and now found someone even bigger than David. So, instead of approaching David, she follows Dalton and stops him. Jessica informs Dalton that she runs a club named Roadhouse in a small city called Glass Key not far from there. While the club was doing well, it required someone like Dalton as a bouncer because there were frequent incidents of violence, and Dalton was offered a job as a bouncer with a handsome payment. However, Dalton declines Jessica's offer, but she still gives him her contact information. Dalton had no place to go, and he was desperate for money, surviving only with his old junk car where he slept. His situation had come to this because he had left UFC wrestling and was now barely making ends meet with minor wrestling matches in alleys. Frustrated with his life, he parks his car on a railway track and waits for the train, seemingly contemplating suicide. As the train approaches, it hits him hard, damaging his car severely but leaving him alive. This incident reveals Dalton's lack of fear of death. As Dalton's eyes fall on the card Jessica gave him, he decides to give it a try. He visits the address written on the card, which leads him to a small town called Glass Key. Upon getting off the bus, he meets a friendly girl named Charlie, who directs him to Roadhouse Cafe and tells him that she met Jessica, the owner of Roadhouse, who had come seeking help. Dalton heads to Roadhouse Cafe where he meets Jessica, who assigns him the responsibility of ensuring safety at Roadhouse due to frequent fights and gang activities there. Jessica informs Dalton that many bouncers had come before, but none stayed for long. However, she hopes Dalton will stay for a while. At Jessica's club, there were already some guys who prevented fights, but they were also afraid of the gang. One of them, Lucas, recognizes Dalton and calls himself his fan. That night, some gang members arrive on bikes led by a guy named Jax. They start causing chaos in the club without any reason, and no one dares to stop them. Dalton intervenes and demands to speak with them. Initially, Jax asks Dalton to deal with his men first, but Dalton insists on talking immediately. When Jax questions Dalton's lack of fear, Dalton points out that the bikers outside belong to them, and he's going to deal with them. With that, Dalton walks out, and the gang follows. Outside, Dalton warns them to leave straight away, or else they'll end up in the hospital. He asks if there's any hospital nearby because they'll need it after the beating they'll receive. Ignoring his warning, the gang decides to fight, but within minutes, Dalton single-handedly defeats them all, causing severe injuries. The sight astonishes everyone in the bar, as someone finally taught the gang a lesson. Afterward, Dalton takes the injured gang members to the nearby hospital. In the car, he reminds them that he had warned them about the hospital. At the hospital, Dalton meets Dr. Ellie, who tends to his wound caused during the fight. Later, Jessica thanks Dalton and gives him the payment for the first week, which is around $5,000. Now, Dalton needs a place to stay, so he asks Jessica for permission to stay on her boat, despite its run-down condition and warnings about the dangerous waters infested with crocodiles. Now, the next morning when Dalton walks into the city, everyone greets him by name, despite Dalton not knowing anyone there. But after the events of the previous night, he had truly become everyone's hero. Following this, Dalton returns to the same bookstore he had visited before, where he meets Charlie again, the friendly girl, but this time her dad wasn't there. She shares that their bookstore isn't really special, it was merely her mother's last wish to have one, which is why they set it up. However, to support the family, her dad had to take up a job elsewhere and was currently at work. Charlie now recognized Dalton, not as an ordinary man but as Dalton, one of UFC's finest wrestlers. Around this time, some gang thugs arrive and start vandalizing the nearby shops. Charlie tells them to leave, but they don't and instead start threatening her. That's when Delton comes out, and seeing him, the thugs run away. The scene then shifts to a cruise showing these gang thugs, actually belonging to Mr. Billy. Billy is the one often instigating vandalism at the Roadhouse Club through these thugs because he wants to empty the place. In fact, the entire city was built and settled by Billy's father, who was also involved in drug dealings, leading to his arrest and imprisonment, leaving Billy to take over the city's affairs. On the cruise, the gang informs Billy about Delton thwarting their plans at the Roadhouse, mentioning how he fought them off and even took them to the hospital himself. Billy criticizes their gang leader, Jex, for not handling a simple bouncer, revealing that Jex is still seriously hospitalized. Since Delton's arrival, the club had been doing well, and gangsterism had nearly vanished. Delton's presence also emboldened the other club boys, who now felt courageous enough to handle minor scuffles themselves, thanks to fight tips from Delton. However, one day, gang leader Jex returns, fully recovered, and launches a deadly attack on Delton in an attempt to kill him, but Delton miraculously survives. That night, Jex tries again to kill Delton on his boat with a gun, but before he can shoot, Delton overpowers him and throws him into the water. Just as Delton was about to pull him up, a crocodile drags Jex under the water. The club members are overjoyed since the gang leader who had terrorized them was now gone. Then, one day, while Delton was having lunch, he unexpectedly meets Dr. Ellie again. In the next scene, it is shown that Delton was unable to understand why all these gangs and goons are after this club and what they want. To find out, he once again goes to Charlie's bookstore, where he had developed a good friendship with Charlie. Now, he looks at the map of Glass City on Charlie's computer and tries to understand something. Later, when he exits the bookstore, he meets a man who shows him a gun and says that the boss wants to meet you, so come with me straight away. This was Billy's man who had come to take Delton to Billy, but Delton refuses to go with him, and before he could shoot Delton, Delton breaks his fingers, and then Delton tells that man that I work at the Roadhouse, tell your boss to meet me there. After that, Billy's dad, who is in jail, gets information about what is happening in Glass City, and then he somehow manages to call Billy, but Billy doesn't talk to him and angrily throws his phone into the water. Then Billy's dad sends a wrestler who can confront Delton. This wrestler is a bit crazy, and his name is Danny. Danny first slaps Billy and says that your dad told me to do this. After that, he asks about Delton, but Billy tells him to give me another chance to work things out on my own, and if it doesn't work out, then you can work on your own. The scene changes, and Dr. Ellie is shown once again, who comes in a police boat. Actually, this boat belongs to her friend who is in the police, and now Ellie takes Delton with her. After that, they both are seen chilling between the water, and there seems to be some chemistry between them. Then when Ellie was about to leave Delton back, some policemen arrive there who take Delton with them, and Ellie also sees this from a distance. Actually, these policemen had met Billy, and they wanted to take Delton with them and kill him, but before they could kill Delton, Ellie arrives there and slaps the officer and takes Delton with her. Actually, that officer was none other than Ellie's dad, so he doesn't say anything to Ellie and lets Delton go with her. Ellie tells all these things to Delton in the car and also tells him to leave this city because it is dangerous for him. On the other hand, Billy's goons knew that Delton was good friends with Charlie, so they also set fire to Charlie's bookstore. After that, it is shown that Billy himself comes to the club to meet Delton, and for the last time, he tries to convince Delton and offers him money, but Delton doesn't accept his offer. But before leaving, Billy asks Delton a question. He asks Delton about a video that he had seen on YouTube, which was a video of his fight in WWE, in which he had beaten a fighter a lot, to the extent that he even won the wrestling, but still why was he beating that opponent? It was against the rules, yet why did he do that? But Delton doesn't give any answer to this question and remains completely silent. After that, Billy leaves the club, and now he sends the same WWE fighter Danny to fight Delton, whom his dad had sent. Since both Delton and Danny were wrestling fighters, both already knew each other. And there is a tough fight between them, but in this fight, Danny seems to have the upper hand on Delton, and suddenly, something happens to Delton, and he starts leaving the fight. On the other hand, there is chaos in the club as Billy's men create a lot of havoc and beat up everyone in the club. And now Delton was leaving the city when he sees the bookstore on the way, which belonged to Charlie, which had been badly burnt. Running towards the bookstore, he finds out that Charlie and his dad are admitted to the hospital, and he is badly injured. Seeing this, Delton gets very angry, and he goes straight to Billy's house, where he meets the man who is Billy's right hand, and this same man had set fire to Charlie's bookstore. Then Delton tells him that I was leaving the city, but then I saw that you burnt that bookstore, you made me very angry, and this is what I did not want because I also don't know what I do when I get angry. And then Delton hits the man hard in the neck and tells him that I have broken both the bones of your throat and your windpipe in the same anger. And this was the answer to the question that Delton had now given, that he got very angry in the ring, which is why he had beaten his opponent wrestler, and he didn't want to get angry because he didn't want to hurt anyone. And now Dalton wanted to teach Billy a lesson, and he finds out that Billy is taking money from somewhere, and he knows that the police are the ones who will deliver that money to him, and as soon as he finds out about it, he goes to the place where the deal of money was happening and he kills that police officer and loots all the money from there. The next day, Dr. Ellie's dad, i.e., the police sheriff, comes to Dalton and tells him that Billy has kidnapped his daughter and he is demanding money from him, which is the money you took from us, and if we don't return the money to him, he will kill Ellie. Then Dalton tells him that he will bring the money, and then Dalton goes to Billy's cruise with a bag of money. Some discussion about the money happens among those people. But there was no money in that bag, but there was a bomb placed in it, which he uses to blow up that cruise. And after that, the cruise was sinking. Then Dalton searches for Ellie and soon finds her somehow and manages to save Ellie somehow and brings her to the surface. But then Billy runs away with Ellie in his other boat. On the other hand, the other fighter also arrives, and how Dalton manages to take the boat of that fighter and follow Billy. Then his boat goes towards the roadhouse where the club was, where Dalton beats Billy, but then the other fighter Danny also arrives there, and there is a good fight between Dalton and Danny here. And this time too, Danny was overpowering Dalton. Then Billy gets up and comes and tells Danny to kill him, but Danny is a kind-hearted person, so he kills Billy to shut his mouth forever. After that, once again the fight between Dalton and Danny begins, and this time Danny manages to hit Dalton with a stick in his stomach, but somehow Dalton gathers courage and stands up, and then he relentlessly attacks Danny with those sticks and manages to hit Danny this time. After this, Officer Sheriff, meaning Dr. Eli's dad, arrives there and tells Dalton that this has become a very big case, but I'll handle everything, you go from here, and now Eli also tells him to leave. Which means that there will be no case against Dalton, and now Dalton starts to leave. Then he sees Charlie again at the bookstore, which makes him very happy because she was now fine, but there was a bag left at the bookstore which had the same money that belonged to Billy, but he had given the money to Charlie. Maybe he did it to clear his guilt because of him, their bookstore was burnt down. On the other hand, at the end, Danny is shown again, who survived, but his redemption was not lessened. And with this, the movie ends here. Please let me know in the comments how you liked this movie, and please like and share it.